Leader. I want to take you to a passage here tonight in John 14 and verse 1 in the NIV. It says, "Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, therefore believe also in me. My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, I wouldn't have told you that I'm going there to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me so that you also may be where I am. You know the way to the place where I am going." So this is like talking about Jesus not only having a plan for you, but he's also got a place for you. Was it something I said? I'm sorry. Did I offend you? You good? You play so nicely. Well, I'm going to miss you for the next 20 minutes. Yeah, but hang in there. Thank you. Okay, so it starts out by saying, hey, don't let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. So then he says, don't worry, I've got a place for you. So for some of us, it's not so much about a plan. I'm not worried about whether there's a plan for me. I'm more worried about, do I belong anywhere? Where do I belong? And loneliness has become an epidemic problem right around the world. It is an incredible problem. And the United Kingdom government have just appointed a minister of loneliness because it's such a big problem. And it actually has been proven that people who are lonely have higher rates of heart attacks, heart disease, die earlier, are more subject to all kinds of physical sicknesses, not just mental and emotional sicknesses. You were not designed to do life on your own. I know that when we come to church and we're told, yeah, we need Jesus, but actually, we also need each other. And the problem with that is that means you got to get along with each other. You got to actually learn how to relate successfully to other people. And one of the things that we are not educated about and don't know hardly anything about in this life is how to actually relate to other people. Technology has joined us together, so-called, but actually when we have a face-to-face meeting with people, it can be kind of awkward when people don't know how to relate and don't know how to talk. And they're expecting the world to actually deliver something into their world, when in fact, we're actually here to be delivering something into other people's worlds. But loneliness is a serious issue. In Sydney, 25% of the population, about 1.2 million people, go home to nobody. There's no one there. The house is empty. I read some stories of people who are feeling that. Jane, who's 23 years old, she says, I was going through a hard time when I lived alone. I would lie staring at my roof. I'd think to myself, anything could happen to me right now and no one would know. I hated the silence and played my stereo really loud just to feel like I had some company. It felt like I lived in my own little silent box with 4 boring walls. It seemed that outside of my box, the world was happening and I wasn't a part of it. Jason is 17. He says, at school, I always got teased for being fat. The kids never left me alone. They would pinch my lunch, push me around, call me things like Fatso and Dumbo. At home, I'd lock myself in my room. I didn't ever want to go out because I thought I looked so horrible. I thought no one in the world would like me. I didn't even like myself. As I got older, my body shape changed, but the feeling still followed me. When I met a person for the first time, I thought they wouldn't like me, and all they saw was somebody weak, ugly, and disgusting. I didn't bother trying to make any friends. I hated myself, and I didn't trust anyone. I was alone. Here's a 15-year-old foreign student, a person who's come to study in Australia. It is really hard to make friends because you can't speak the same language. My parents don't let me go out. They don't understand the different culture here in Australia. They are scared for me. It is scary because if something goes wrong, for example, a fire at home, you cannot explain the problem to somebody. Michelle, who's 21 years old, my ex-boyfriend would insist he came everywhere I went. When he came, he'd always do something to embarrass me. He would also tell me lies and horrible things about my friends and family. I was stupid enough to believe him. My friends got sick of me leaving him and then going back. They hated him. Slowly, I lost many of my friends, and I hardly ever saw my family. I was alone. This made it easier for him to control me and harder for me to get out. Being alone has a whole range of problems with it. And you might even identify with one of those, or maybe living in a world where you feel like nobody understands me. Nobody is connecting with me. I feel like I'm isolated. And that is exactly where the devil would love you to live, isolated, unconnected. In the Bible, though, Jesus is saying here, I've got a place for you. Don't think you're going to be marginalized. Don't think you're going to be left outside. I've got a place for you inside my house. It's not about just coming to Jesus, it's coming to his house. And so that happens. We thrive when we are planted in the house of God. And you start to plant yourself in a range of relationships that are going to work for you. When we are alone, we're not thriving, we're surviving. And you don't want to live an entire life where you're just trying to get through today so that you can get to sleep and then face another day tomorrow. Every day should be like a huge celebration for you. The sun comes up and you're thinking, today is going to be amazing. Today I'm going to be with my friends. I'm going to be in church. I'm going to be in the house of God. And one of the most amazing things that happens when you and I connect with one another, there is a level of nourishment, of flourishing. There's a level of impartation that can happen between us that you can't get under any other circumstances because it is a spiritual connection. That spirit of yours is covered over with like a film before you meet Jesus. And when you meet him, that film is taken away and you find yourself connecting with people in the love of God. And that is called koinonia in the New Testament. Is a word that means fellowship, but you can only find it in the house of God. And that place that Jesus is talking about that he has for you and I, that place is actually inside a network of relationships. So that's why we have connect groups, like these small little groups that get together where you can actually meet with one another. Now, in a relationship that is going to work, the picture in the Old Testament of Jonathan and David is one of the greatest stories you'll ever see, because that is about two young men who lay down their lives for one another to help each other achieve what they're meant to be doing. Jonathan is King Saul's son, so he's the prince. If his father is the king, he's the prince. He is the next one in line to sit on the throne of the whole of the nation of Israel. With that, you get the crown, you get all the wealth, huge, unlimited wealth. You get power, you get prestige, you're famous, you're one of King David's amazing people. King Saul's amazing lineage. You have become, you've hit the pinnacle of what anybody would want to have, to be the king, to be the powerful person. And yet, when he met David, he knew that God had actually appointed David to be the next king. And so he's thinking obviously, if he's the next king, that means I'm not. Now at that point, when you know somebody's going to get something that you're not going to get, it's easy to throw a tantrum, put your bottom lip on the floor, sulk, and your parents might give something to somebody else and you didn't get it, or somebody else got the raise in the job or got the promotion, and you find that affects you because you are hoping that it would be you. Here is Jonathan, who is about to be the prince, and it says he came to David and he gave him his sword, he gave him his shield, he gave him his robe, and he said, I know that you are going to be the next king of Israel, and I am going to serve alongside of you. So that was clear in Jonathan's mind about his destiny was wrapped up with David. They were going to serve together, and he was prepared to lay down what his future was for this newcomer who'd just come along. In church life, you're going to find people get opportunities here, opportunities there, and you might think, man, I wish that was me. And instead of getting an attitude about it, you need to say, go along to that person and encourage them and tell them, look, I'm going to help you in whatever way I can to get you to where you're meant to be going. When we actually, by a sacrificial, unselfish attitude, try to boost others, take what we've got and help others to get there, you're going to find that the world will run a whole lot smoother for you. Your future is based on the success of your relationships. I've watched people who've got huge talent, huge abilities, huge intellects, should go an enormous distance in life, but actually finding themselves falling out with everybody they have a relationship with. They just can't get along with people. And so they say things, they do things or whatever that just make it fall apart. And then they're back at square one because they were actually, as a team, going to go forward. The way the church grows is that we operate as a team. In every room, there's somebody who actually God has appointed that place to be so that you can actually join with them. When you come into the church, you find yourself fitting with some people. Ephesians 4:16 says, we are joined together by joints and ligaments. So if you think, and it's spoken of like a body, and so some joints look like that, right? And then you have these things called ligaments, which hold the joint together. So down in your elbow, you've got this ball and socket joint, and it's like that. Now, there are some people you meet, and you know instantly there's a divine connection. You feel like, man, there's a resonance here. When I met Mark and Bernadette Kelsey right at the start of this church, immediately we knew that we were called to do something together. When I met Simon and Helen McIntyre in New Zealand, I was their youth leader, but there was far more to it than just me being the youth leader and them being in the youth group. We had a sense of destiny that we knew we were going to do something together. Mark and Kerry Saundercock, also, that right from day one, I always felt great around Mark. Everybody feels great around Mark. But I knew that if we could actually keep walking together, him and his wife, Kerry, whom I've known since she was really small, and we've been walking together for nearly 40 years, for goodness sake. And once you've got a divine connection in life, you got to look after it, because they can fall apart. You don't want to treat it casually, because the fact that you've been called together means you got to now look after each other and appreciate one another. And one of the most important things to understand is that there are going to be times when there is strain on that relationship. The joint is going to strain. You might like each other. I mean, when you met each other, you know, as a couple to get married, you might have fallen in love. But listen to me, love is not enough. I know that sounds like blasphemy, but love is not going to get you there. There are going to be days when you don't love each other. In fact, there are going to be days when you kind of hate each other. When you're lying over your side of the bed and your arms down on the floor and you're almost falling out and you're pretending you're asleep, but you're not, and you're just hating each other. And she's over that side and she's like leaning over there and she's pretending she's asleep too, but you can feel the air in the room is like a volcano. It's just rumbling along. And 3 o'clock in the morning, you turn over and say, well, we're going to talk about this. And you kind of get through it, and you get to wake up later in the day, whatever, and you feel like your relationship's a little fragile, but you got to keep working on it. But then life is frustrating. There's strains come on a relationship. Like she went and spent 10 grand on the credit card, and you don't know where the dresses are because they're hidden in the back of the wardrobe. And then he went and spent 15 grand on a new guitar, and you haven't seen it because he wants to pull it out in a year's time and say, oh, that old thing, I've had it for a year, you know. There's all kinds of pressures that come on. Then you have babies. You've never had pressure until you've had a baby. No, that's not true. You've never had pressure until you've had a teenager. And this little thing comes into your house, and fluids come out every hole in its head, body. You know, it's like that, and you have to clean it up. And there are all kinds of pressures that are going to come on these relationships that you're involved in. And when they do, this ligament is your commitment to the relationship. When you feel like I don't want to be in this relationship any longer, but you know that you've been called together, you need to work it out. And the way to work it out is to go through a process of repair in a relationship. So let me tell you what that is. Over in Matthew, Jesus says, he says, be ye perfect, even as my Father in heaven is perfect. When I read that, I dropped the Bible. I said, I can't do this. Jesus, you're saying be perfect like God in heaven is perfect? That's just ridiculous. Who can do that? But the word perfect means the ability to repair and adjust. Okay? It doesn't mean that you are never going to make a mistake. It means that when you do make a mistake, you have the capacity to repair the relationship, to get it right again. If you've busted one of these ligaments here, and this joint here has gone, there's got to come a time when you recover and repair relationships that are broken, that God had put you together with. And so the way that you do that is, number one, you apologize. You say, I'm sorry. When you apologize, you don't blame other people or circumstances. You don't say, I'm sorry, but you did something really wrong too. You don't do that. You don't go like, I'm sorry, but it's such a small thing, isn't it? I'm sorry, but it happened so long ago, didn't it? I'm sorry, but everybody's doing it. These are all slippery excuses that our heart wants to just try and halve the level of humble pie we're having to eat. The way that you apologize is accept full responsibility without blaming anyone or anything else for what's gone on. You say, I'm sorry. I blew it. I shouldn't have done that. That's it. Now, let me tell you how repair happens on the other side when you're the offended party. You have to forgive people before they say sorry. You got to say in the morning, not I apologize to everybody, but I forgive everybody. That's part of the daily prayer that Jesus has given you. Man, if you can get this, you'll have gotten one of the greatest secrets in life. Because one of the deepest problems that cause people to be lonely in life is their inability to recover a broken relationship. Their inability to actually repair something that broke down. There are some people here, you haven't spoken to your father for 40 years. There are people watching online, you haven't spoken to your wife, even though you're still married, not in a meaningful way, for 20 years. And even though you live together, you're still lonely. You're still feeling, I'm alone. There's nobody touching me at a heart level. I exchange information. What are you doing today? Going to work. Where are you going? I'm going to get my nails done. What are you doing? Getting my hair done. It's just information. But there's got to come a time where a level of intimacy happens, because that is what we ache for. That we have a sense of fellowship, that we're able to laugh together. When you laugh together, you have emotional communion. You start to mix with one another, and you feel something that every heart in this world aches for. Jonathan did encourage David, prophesied over him, and boosted him. But David was meant to rise to power with Jonathan at his side. But Jonathan could never make a break from a relationship that was toxic. It was extremely toxic. It had demons in it. It was like spear-throwing, murderous, planning, scheming, plotting, toxic. That was his father. That was this whole world of the kingdom that he was in. And he knew he needed to make a break from a toxic relationship and get into a God-divine designed relationship. And he never did. One of the things about entering into healthy relationships is letting go of unhealthy ones. And it can be difficult to do that sometimes. Let me get back to the process of repair in any offense in a relationship begins by me saying, I forgive that person. In fact, most every day of my life, when I pray, I say, I forgive everybody, everything they've ever done to me. Nobody owes me anything. No apology. I'm not going to carry a grudge. I refuse to be walking around with inner judgments about other people. I want to be free from that. That is the way that you will live with a free spirit. And some people have never actually thought about how they're going to manage that, how they're going to get there. But all you got to do is say, I forgive them. It might last for about 2 minutes, and then you're feeling resentment again. So you do it again. I forgive them. It may last for 3 minutes, so you do it again. You might get it down to where you're not feeling any resentment toward anybody for a week. But then it all comes back again when you have a particular circumstance. There may be some people who are so frustrating and aggravating in your life that you are constantly needing to forgive them for what they do mindlessly. Maybe they're selfish, maybe they just don't get it, but you've constantly got to actually say, I forgive them, and they don't learn. But Jesus said, this is how you live the life that I've called you to. Because Peter says, how many times I got to forgive my brother for the same problem? He says, 7 times? He says, Peter, 70 times 7. You just never stop. That's what he's saying. You've got to live a life of unjudging forgiveness towards the people around you. If you're to navigate this life successfully in any way at all and keep your relationships healthy, even the people who are the closest to you are going to wound you at some stage. You've got to be able to let it go and say, I forgive them. Do it tonight. Let your spirit get set free by the power of the Holy Spirit. Okay, so once that person comes to you now with an apology, and you've already forgiven them, they say, look, I'm so sorry, I did this idiot thing. You go, it's fine. I've already forgiven you. We're good. Okay, so if you haven't, though, this person comes to you and says, I'm so sorry. You go like, yeah, well, so you should be. I don't know if I can really just give you a whole lot of, like, yeah, I forgive you. What am I, a piece of meat that you can just treat like anything? You know what you did? It was so, and so you revisit it, and then that person goes, well, I said I'm sorry. Yeah, well, that doesn't sound much like a sorry to me. You know, it's like, and you want your pound of flesh, and they say, well, I tried, and the whole thing's a mess again. That is why forgiveness has to come before apology. That's why God was in Christ 2,000 years ago, reconciling the world to himself, not imputing their sins to them. He came and he has already forgiven every human on earth their sin. Whether they receive it or not is their choice. But in God's mind, there is nobody alive today or has been alive or will be alive that he is holding any judgment against, that he is holding any grudge against. He has forgiven through the power of the cross and through the blood of Jesus. And so when we come to God, we're like the prodigal son, walking up the road. Oh, man, it's going to be so bad. He's going to hate me so much. I've done so many things wrong. Everybody's thinking like that. They feel guilty. I don't know if I'm going to be any good in the house anymore. The father comes running down the road. Hairs flying, turbans flowing off. His capes are going out behind him. He's running down the road towards the son. The kid thinks, no, he's going to shoot me. He's going to pull out a shotgun. Get off my property, you rotten kid. Do you know how much hurt you've brought to our family? We're ashamed and all this. No, he doesn't do that. The father's got no gun. He's just got open arms because he's already forgiven the boy. He's already let it go. And you need to know that God in heaven has let it go. He's not holding anything against you. The way into his presence is already made clean, clear. And that's what you and I have to do for everybody in our world that is feeling guilty, maybe about what they did to us, that we let it go. We don't hold on to resentment. If you hold on to resentment and unforgiveness, it's like you drinking poison and you hope they will die. Because the unforgiveness is only going to poison you. It's only going to hurt you. A major key to having the healthy relationships that you ache for, to get out of loneliness, is to let go things that people have done to you. It may seem unfair in your mind. Hey, I'm the victim here. Why would I have to say, I forgive you? They should say, I'm sorry. Maybe they'll never say, I'm sorry. But the fact is, you've forgiven them. And you're free from the poison of a judging heart. And that's going to set your mind free, your heart free. You're going to find physical freedom in all kinds of ways. I want you all to stand right now as we come to a close here. You finding your place in the house of God is one thing. Holding on to it is another. I've watched people find their place in the house of God, but then a relationship has gone south on them, and they have not had the ability nor the way to find their way back into that place because they just won't let go of the offense. They can't say, I'm sorry. They can't find a place where they could repair. Do you know the second thing in that, be ye perfect, even as my Father in heaven is perfect? Repair, the ability to repair. I talked about the ability to repair just then. But the second ability is to adjust. Sometimes it's not that anybody's done anything wrong. It's like nobody's done anything wrong. It's just that you got two people with a strong will. One wants to go that way. The other wants to go that way. And you'll find that's in marriage. You'll find that's in friendships, that there are two opinions and they're opposite, and you got two different directions. At that point, if you want the relationship to stay together, you got to make some adjustments. You got to well, listen, maybe we'll not do this. Maybe we'll do it like that. I've found as a leader, constantly, I need to be making adjustments because I'm excited. I want to do stuff, and I want to do it right now. And my team will say, well, Pastor, what if we, do it in 6 months? And what if we try and get the price down a half the rate? And I'm going like, yeah, it sounds like good sense. I'll make an adjustment. Inside, I'm saying, no, we can do it right now. But on the outside, I'm going, yeah, sure. We'll find a way to make the adjustment. Because I know that once a team feels like what they're saying is respected, they'll also buy in all the way to what you're doing. And when you got people around you and you never agree with them and you push them back and you just want your opinion and your way all the time, your relationships are going to suffer. They're not going to be great. Learn how to agree. Learn how to lay down your agenda and say, you know what? I just want to come alongside you and make this work for you. I want to make this whole relationship work because we've been called together as a team. This year, as we start into connect groups, many of you are back in connect groups now, the art of relating to one another is an art that we're not taught about at schools or anywhere. The art of how to get along. We're so uneducated, and it's proven by the fact that this year 50,000 marriages will fall apart in Australia because we don't even know how to talk properly to each other, to get to have a discussion about a difficult subject without yelling and screaming. We don't know how to navigate those sorts of communications. Jesus teaches us time and again through the book of Proverbs, through the New Testament, there are ways of looking after your relationships so they're long-term, they're healthy, they're productive, and they work. This year, 100,000 people will get married in Australia, hopeful that the wedding, a great big wedding, is going to make a wonderful marriage. And people get into debt, they go into all sorts of extremes on a wedding. Sorry, girls, I'm not trying to rain on your wedding. But listen to me, the wedding's only one day. I've been married 47 years. It's a long time, right? And some days seem longer than others. Because you're working on it. You're making it work. You're committed to it. You got these ligaments holding the relationship together. Coming to Christ is similar. There are going to be days when you don't like God much because He didn't answer your prayer, because He didn't do what you wanted Him to do. You wonder why He doesn't help you in this area and that area. But you got to know that you can trust Him, that whatever's going on, it's for your good. To start that walk with Him, you got to ask Him to come into your heart, into your world.